Hello, it's John Pollock, and this is Fight News Now, the MMA edition. Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm your host, John Pollock, and today we will be gearing up for the UFC's return to Fox on Saturday in Sacramento with a look at some of the key fights on that card. You're going to hear some strong words from Michael Bisping, Miesha Tate, and Phil Baroni. Plus, we're going to chat with Nick the Tooth and our regular features, including The Shift with a preview of The Hobbit, and of course, 3 rounds with John Ramdeen and Robin Black. But before all of that, we've got this week's newsmakers. The Sleep Train Arena in Sacramento, California will play host to the UFC's 9th card on the Fox network this Saturday, featuring a big night for Team Alpha Male, headlined by Joseph Benavidez challenging Demetrious Johnson for the flyweight gold in a rematch from UFC 152 last year, and Uriah Faber looks for his 4th win in 2013 as he meets fellow bantamweight Michael McDonald.
For the winner, and now the UFC flyweight champion of the world, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson!
Demetrious Johnson by split decision!
After capturing the inaugural flyweight title at UFC 152, Demetrious Johnson hasn't looked back. In his first title defense, he took on TUF 14 winner John Dodson, and despite being knocked down early in the fight,
That's a big left hand by Dodson.
his pressure proved too much for the Jackson Winklejohn student, as Mighty Mouse turned the fight around, scoring a unanimous decision at the end of 5 rounds.
You know, I got days to live, but I'm in great shape. It's going to happen. It's like going swimming. You're going to get splashed. You're going to get hit, so I'm all right.
Coming off 2 finishes, John Moraga criticized the champ's fighting style before their bout at UFC on Fox 8.
You know, he don't put on exciting fights. I mean, he's got a lot of technique and a lot of skill, but he doesn't go in there and try to finish people, I don't feel, you know.
Johnson would ignore the talk and instead walk the walk, finishing Moraga late in the 5th round.
He's got it, Mike. That's it. It's all over. That's a champion. Demetrious Johnson, the winner by submission.
After his loss to Mighty Mouse, Joseph Benavidez went back to the drawing board, and with Dwayne Ludwig joining Team Alpha Male as their head coach, he had the perfect teacher to elevate his game. After beating Ian McKellan by unanimous decision, Jiu-Jitsu would face Darren Uyenoyama at UFC on Fox 7, and the improvement in his striking was put on full display. The former bantamweight title challenger would return at UFC Fight Night 28 to face former #1 flyweight Jussier Da Silva, and showed off his devastating body attack once again. Much like their first bout, Demetrious Johnson will look to outwork and overwhelm Benavidez with his quickness. However, after working with Ludwig, Jiu-Jitsu will hope to catch the speedy champion and finish him for the first time in his career. The co-main event will see another Team Alpha Male member in the octagon as Uriah Faber takes on Michael McDonald in a bout featuring 2 top 5 bantamweights. After losing interim title bouts to Renan Barão, both Faber and McDonald have been working their way back to a title shot in the competitive bantamweight division. The California kid rides a 3-fight winning streak into the bout after 2 consecutive rear naked choke wins.
There it is. And there is the tap, another submission victory.
And a decision over Yuri Alcantara in his most recent outing. In McDonald's 1 appearance since losing to Barão, he faced ultra-tough Brad Pickett. After devastating the Brit early with striking,
Brad is in big trouble.
he showed off his ground game to finish the fight.
Pickett's in offensive trouble. He's tapping. Beautiful job by Mike McDonald. That kid is for real.
Will Faber earn another title shot, or will the torch pass to McDonald as he ascends the bantamweight division once again?
Middleweight Michael Bisping was recently cleared to resume training after a detached retina, and he's wasting no time creating possible fights for himself in 2014. After back-and-forth words with Tim Kennedy, Bisping has also thrown out the name of middleweight champion Chris Weidman, who defends his title December the 28th against Anderson Silva, and the UFC analyst broke down a theoretical matchup between himself and the reigning champion at 185.
Chris Weidman, fantastic fighter, you know, very, very strong, awesome wrestler, very good on the ground. His weakest area, even though he just knocked out Anderson Silva, in my opinion, is his stand-up, and I think most people would agree with that. I've got pretty good anti-wrestling, so I think I could stop some of the takedowns. If he did get me down, I'm pretty sure I could get back to my feet and restart the fight and do what I do best. So I think, stylistically, Weidman would be a better matchup. Incidentally, I think Weidman's going to win the rematch. I actually picked him in the first fight, but I thought he'd win by a decision or a submission. I don't think anybody saw him knocking him out. And I think in the rematch, he's going to have a very grappling-based game plan. I think he's going to take him down and, as I said, grind out a decision or potentially a submission.
Weidman versus Silva 2 will headline UFC 168 alongside the rematch between bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate. Coming off a heated season of The Ultimate Fighter, Tate has discovered newfound popularity for the rematch, and she spoke to MMAweekly.com about the dynamic of this fight and what Tate is going to do differently than she did in 2012.
I think that she's a little bit more transparent to me now than she was before, so I can kind of see through the tough girl act a little bit. I think that Ronda has her fair share of insecurities as well. You know, she puts on the persona that she's the biggest and baddest, and right now, you know, rightfully so, she is the biggest and baddest. But I'm coming hard, and I'm coming for her December 28th, and I want to take what I feel is mine, and that's the belt. I believe her 100% when she says that this is the real Ronda Rousey. You know, and I won't say a bad word, but she is real. That is the real Ronda Rousey, and I feel very sorry for any of her future boyfriends.
One of the busiest trainers in the sport today is TriStar's Firas Zahabi. Most associate the coach with UFC products George St. Pierre and Rory McDonald, but his fighters also include the likes of Rick Hahn, who competes for Bellator, and Zahabi shared with us some of his impressions on the differences between the two organizations and its fighters.
I see Bellator guys go with UFC guys at my gym all the time. There's a lot of talent that's outside of Bellator. You saw that when the UFC absorbed the WEC. Condit became champion, Benson Henderson became champion, Anthony Pettis became champion. So I mean, there's a lot of talent there. You can't underestimate them. Sometimes they get sucked into another league, even though the pays are not as great. Doesn't mean the talent, and doesn't mean they're not working as hard.
The news was confirmed this past week that Ben Askren is signed with ONE FC for 6 fights over the course of the next 2 years. The ONE FC welterweight division is about as deep as a child's pool right now, but one welterweight that is looking to fight Askren is 37-year-old Phil Baroni. Askren responded to Baroni's challenge on Twitter, and that earns him this week's Tweet of the Week, as Askren brought up a scene from last year's Fight Factory series involving Baroni and his girlfriend following a loss by the New York Badass. Baroni was quick to respond to Askren as he attempts to build up interest in this hypothetical fight as Askren awaits his first opponent in ONE FC.
He got passed up by the UFC as defending Bellator champion. I mean, talk about irrelevant. You know, what a piece of shit. You know, nobody wants to see the guy fight. Nobody saw him fight. I mean, what do you have, a couple fights on MTV too or something? I mean, I never seen the guy fight before. If I see him on the street, I'm just gonna punch him in his face. So you know, one way or the other, it's gonna happen. You know, you cross the line, talk a little personal shit, and you know, there's places you don't go as a man, and he went there. So you know, I'm gonna make a pay for it. I'll stop this takedown and crack him in the fucking face. That he's an asshole. You know, he crossed the line, and now he doesn't want to fight. Him and Dan Henderson's old water boy over there. I'm not talking about him after this. My last conversation about this Barca. He's a chump. Nobody knows who he is. No one ever seen him fight. He was a washout in the Olympics. He didn't place. He's from America. He didn't place. He's a nobody. He was ready to go teach wrestling camps, the last I heard. Go teach wrestling camps, you You're a bum and a buster. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody wants to see you fight.
And that full interview can be seen on this week's edition of the MMA Meltdown with Gabe Morency. With the holiday season upon us, what is that gift that you can find for the fight fan in your family? Well, perhaps it's the book penned by Nick the Tooth Agulo entitled Into the Cage, The Rise of UFC Nation. The longtime friend of UFC President Dana White stopped by our Fight Network studios in Toronto to chat about the book and a host of other topics, and here's a sample of that chat that I conducted.
The reason I did the book is when I was traveling with Dana. Dana and I grew up together. And so when I was traveling with Dana, being a photographer, I was like, bro, I am going to start taking some photos. And he was like, I don't care. And immediately I started looking at the photos and I just said, this period right here is so important because, and I talk about this in the book, this is going to be the period where we leave behind these last 3-4 years, where we leave behind the last of that kind of chaotic circus-like thing, and it merges into really like a corporate, you know, very much like NFL, soccer. I think when we look back on this period, it'll be like the end of that like kind of mayhem.
Tell us about young Dana White.
Well, I mean, that's funny. People ask me that, and the reality is it's hard for me to see even the public persona because I've known him for so long. The side of him that people don't see is probably just as a friend, as a father, very devoted father, you know, and husband. And so, but the part of him that blows up about a judge's decision, that's always been there. He's always been, you know, if he's pissed about something, he's going to let you know about it.
Tell us a bit about the book, where our viewers and listeners can check it out. We're getting beautiful here, designed for everyone's coffee table with Christmas coming up. But just tell us a bit about what fans can expect here in the book.
A perfect Christmas gift. So just scratch someone off your list by getting this. You know, it's just my 3-year journey, 3-4 year journey to understand exactly what it was that Dana had unleashed on the world, you know, and what he had helped propel from, you know, let's face it, when they took over, he and Lorenzo and Frank took over the UFC in 2000, it was a mess. And I talk about that in the book, how in 1999 or 2000, he told me about how big MMA was going to be, and I was like, are you crazy? Because I remember that first fight. You know, I remember watching those first few UFCs. And so the book, when you buy the book, it's really my experience backstage, photographing fighters where they've never been photographed. So this is access you've never seen. And also as a writer, just kind of making sense of what the whole sport is and why it's so big. Why is it the fastest growing sport in the world?
What's a quick thought to describe Frank Fertitta? Because he's always the quiet one that we don't know anything about.
You know, I've known Frank since I was young. He was a lot older than us, like 7 years, but he's intimidating. He's smart. He's a brilliant guy, and he's just a powerhouse business guy.
Well, Nick, this is a pleasure here. Into the Cage, The Rise of UFC Nation. It's available now in bookstores everywhere, Amazon.com. Go grab it in time for Christmas. This guy's going to be getting a winter coat for the next time he comes to Toronto. Nick, thanks very much for the time, man. Thank you very much, John. And now we welcome in another John, Mr. Ramdeen. This is confusing me right now. It's from me to me here. What's coming up on 3 rounds? Are you guys going to be chatting about a little card in Sacramento on Saturday night?
That's exactly what we're talking about. UFC on Fox 9 coming up this Saturday. We're talking about what happens to a number of fighters with a victory and what fighters will find themselves in purgatory if they lose.
I have sensed of late on 3 rounds, you guys seem to just look at this is going to be the end of this guy. It's every week, who is going to get cut at the end of it?
Hey, that's just the landscape of things. You don't have a good performance, especially if you're only a mid-tier guy, you're getting the axe. That's the way it seems.
Right before Christmas time, John Ramdeen wants to just end someone's employment.
It's not me, it's them.
It's on you. It really is, John, putting these ideas into their heads. 3 rounds is coming up. Hopefully I still have a job when we come back here because this guy is just poison. We are back on the show, and Fight News Now continues as we welcome to the show John Ramdeen and Robin Black with this week's edition of 3 rounds. And today, guys, we're chatting about Fox 9. It's the Jackson Auto of the Fight Network here.
I don't even know what that means.
That's kind of insulting to Robin. I
apologize.
I'm Otto from The Simpsons, man.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, I'm actually Otto.
Because you're married to Peg Bundy.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it. But look, we got to talk about UFC on Fox 9. An absolutely stellar card going down in Sacramento, California. The main event, 2 of the best in the 125-pound division. Of course, Demetrius Johnson, the champion, taking on the very worthy challenger in Joseph Benavidez. We all anticipate this is going to be a spectacular matchup. When you look at the rest of the card, what stands out to you? Who is going to thrill the audience? For my money, it is going to be the leader of Team Alpha Male. They're from Sacramento, the former WEC featherweight champion Uriah Faber. This guy is always in entertaining fights. He brings it. He's always in charge, and he's taking on, again, I said it before, the future of the 135-pound division. But Michael McDonald, make no mistake, this guy can contend with the best the UFC has to offer.
Yeah, you know, I feel like a fanboy, man, because he's badass. Like, we just saw Bigfoot fight a Samoan, and that was crazy. This card's unbelievable. You got Weidman versus Silva coming up. It's a real good time to watch fights, and you're absolutely right about this matchup. Uriah Faber is one of the great fighters of the 21st century and one of the great fighters of the WEC era. He's only ever been beaten in championship fights, but when you're a kid like McDonald, and you want to get to the top of the division, this is the guy you got to go through. McDonald will touch your chin. He can put anyone unconscious. Uriah Faber doesn't believe this kid can beat him, so he'll fight him in any wheelhouse, including McDonald's own. This is a great matchup.
I think one of the main reasons why this is so intriguing, because you were a guy that fought at 135 pounds. You look at fighters that have competed at 125, 35, 45, or even 55 pounds. Uriah Faber was the guy that everybody looked at because, number one, he was just so fast, so explosive, had wrestling, always had improving hands, and more importantly, he knew how to entertain the audience, and I think that's what really separates Uriah Faber, on top of the fact that this guy is so driven. His goal is to become champion.
He is a really fascinating character. Of course, you know, he's got that cleft in his chin and the blonde hair the chicks like. He's like built out of stone. He's a great performer, but he's mentally one of these guys who whatever it was he decided to do, he would have been great at. He could have been one of those guys sitting on that show Shark Tank deciding where to invest his money. He could have been whatever he wanted to be. What he wants to be is the UFC champion, and he's got to beat this kid.
Now the problem is, Uriah Faber's teammate Chad Mendes is a guy who's simply on fire right now, and if somebody's going to steal the show over Uriah Faber, it's going to be Chad Mendes, because this guy is super explosive, guided by Uriah Faber. His teammate vying for the title, for the 125-pound championship, Danny Castillo, also a big 155-pound wrestler on the card, so obviously giving Chad Mendes fits. So I think Chad Mendes is another guy we have to look out for.
All right, let's look at what Nick Lentz has to do to win. This is a tough one, but Nick Lentz, if he can win this fight, is the ultimate party wrecker. He shows up, he wrecks your party, he spills everything all over the place, and the crowd boos him. To do that, he's got to find the spaces in between the striking and the takedowns to really ruffle up Mendes. It's going to be very tough to do. Mendes hasn't lost a minute in his fighting career, except when he got beat by Aldo, and Nick Lentz has to really, really step up, make it a grinding fight, make it an ugly fight, make it a weird fight, you know, get a couple of bunts in there, find a way to do it, but it's tough, man.
A fight at 155 pounds, kind of close to our heart. Sam Stout taking on Cody McKenzie. Will Cody McKenzie be able to submit Sam Stout? We saw James Krause do it. We've seen Kenny Florian do it, but we've also seen Sam Stout improve over the years in his submission game. Did he take James Krause lightly? I don't think he'll do that with Cody McKenzie, but what happens if this guy loses?
Yeah, you know, for Sam, this is like real gut check time. If you're not beating the Cody McKenzies of the world, you're getting a little later in your career, you made a boatload of money, you've been the exciting guy, you've been the guy signing a lot of autographs that people like, even though you haven't been a champion. If you go in and you smash this guy, it buys you another year or two. If you lose to Cody McKenzie now, and no disrespect to Cody McKenzie, but he has never been at that top of the division. If you lose to him now, maybe it's time to step away. But I don't see that happening. I see Sam Stout chalking up another knockout.
You have to imagine that Mac Danzig is also in the same boat. He needs a victory, and a big victory over Joe Lauzon would ensure his job. But Joe Lauzon, Mr. Pollock, really, it's going to be a tough day at the office for Mac Danzig. And I have a feeling that if he can't get past Joe Lauzon, he might get his walking papers.
Yeah, very important. You didn't share our thoughts, your thoughts at least, on Sam Stout's positioning on this card.
Yeah,
second fight of the night.
Second fight of the night. It makes no sense.
This man has been irate.
I know. Come on. This guy has some of the biggest lineups in all of MMA. When I go to these trade shows or whatever they're called, so come on, give this guy some love. He's handsome. Bramdian
giving a thumbs down on that placement. Very much thank you to both guys that you can catch Monday night, 7 Eastern on 5 rounds. We'll take a short break, but the show is not over. Priscilla Carapan is coming up on the shift, and it's your weekly favorite, the viral video that is just around the corner when we continue on Fight News Now. Welcome back to Fight News Now. I'm John Pollock, and the weekend is heating up on Fight Network with live mixed martial arts action coming at you. Tune in this Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern for Cage Warriors 61 from Jordan, and then Saturday afternoon, Fight Network is your home for Bama 14 at 4 p.m. Eastern from the LG Arena in Birmingham, England. It will feature Paul Daly, Colin Fletcher, and Jim Wallhead among those in action. But it's the month of December, and that means something Lord of the Rings related has to be hitting the theaters, and Priscilla Carapan is going to clue you in on what 3.5-hour marathon is coming to the big screen.
The second installment of The Hobbit returns to box office this week with The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, directed by Peter Jackson. The film is loaded with stars including Ian McKellan, Martin Freeman, and Orlando Bloom, who sat down with us to chat about the making and the direction of the film. Let's take a look.
Where does your journey end? You seek that which would bestow upon you the right to rule and slay a dragon.
Middle-earth seems to be just beginning to rumble and tumble a little bit, and there are forces at work.
Flames of war are upon you.
Gandalf has a problem. I mean, he has another huge issue dwelling that basically threatens all of Middle-earth.
If you awaken that beast, you will destroy us all.
The journey that Bilbo's going on is one of self-revelation as much as helping the dwarves, which he does.
He's still the person he was. He's not a warrior. He's never going to be like a hard man.
He's got a dullness about him, which Gandalf doesn't like. Gandalf wants to shake that out of him.
What did you find? My courage.
Good. You need it.
The themes that run through this film, which are very similar to the themes that run through Lord of the Rings, are good versus evil.
When did we let evil become stronger than us?
The ever-present danger, of course, is the dragon. Can its danger be contained? Are the dwarves the people to help do that?
A lot of the Lord of the Rings and a lot of the Hobbit is about the corruption of power, and Smaug is the sort of ultimate symbol of that. He's a sleepy serpent on top of his pile of gold. It's just an epic odyssey. That's really what The Hobbit is.
I think it's going to be genuinely thrilling, hopefully very moving. It's pretty big filmmaking.
Was that an earthquake?
That, my lad, was a dragon.
That's it for The Shift this week. Back over to you, John.
Thank you, Priscilla, and the show is just about complete, but it wouldn't be a full edition of Fight News Now without our viral video. So get your popcorn, because look what we just found. That looks like the mall that George St. Pierre is going to be appearing at this week. And that brings the show to a close on a right note, I feel. I want to thank our guests, Firas Zahabi, Nick the Tooth, and more. Be sure to catch Cage Warriors 61 and Bama 14 this weekend right here on the Fight Network. The MMA Report with myself will be coming at you Thursday in the podcast section of FightNetwork.com and iTunes. And on behalf of John Ramdeen, Robin Black, Priscilla Carapan, our great Fight Network crew, I'm John Pollock, and we'll do this all again next week.